Shalom. All praise to Yahweh Shemel Shah. Double honor to the apostles of GMS. My name is Amna Allah, coming at you with part 2 of this lesson dealing with Romans, the 4th chapter. Last episode, I ended on the 8th verse. So I'm going to begin here in the 9th verse. So let's get right to it. Romans chapter 4, verse 9. I got to read verse 8. In fact, I'm going to have to read up a little bit. I'm not going to break it down because if you want, brothers, want to know what it means, want to know what it's talking about, you got to watch the first part. It says, Romans 4 and 5. But to him that worketh not, but believeth on him that justifieth, well, I got to break it down anyway. But to him that worketh not, but believeth on him that justifieth the ungodly, his faith is counted for righteousness. So him that seeketh not to be justified by the works of the law, right? Him that worketh not, meaning that doesn't seek to be justified by the works of the law, but believeth on him that justifieth the ungodly, which is Yahweh Shah, his faith is counted for righteousness. And the ungodly, because we sinned. Okay? So believing in Yahweh Shah justifieth the ungodly, justifieth those that have sinned, which you all have sinned. His faith is counted for righteousness. Even as David also described the blessings of the man unto the Most High imputed righteousness without works, saying, Blessed are they whose sins are forgiven and whose sins are covered, or whose iniquities are forgiven, whose sins are covered. Blessed is the man to whom the Lord would not impute sin. Meaning, blessed is the man who the Lord would not find guilty of sin. And the man that the Lord found not guilty of sin is the man that believeth in Yahweh Shah, that his sins will be covered. Okay? So, give me 1 second. Give me 1 second, brothers. Okay, it's over there. All right. Romans 4:9. It says, Cometh this blessedness then upon the circumcision only? So cometh the blessedness of not having sin imputed unto you for believing in Yahweh Shah. Does that blessedness cometh upon the circumcision only, or upon the uncircumcision also? So is it only upon the circumcision only, or come upon the circumcision also? Let's find out who's the circumcision and uncircumcision. Let's go to the book of Romans chapter 2. All right. Who's that talking about? We're going to go to Romans chapter 2, verse, let me see, I'm going to start from verse 25. Romans chapter 2, verse 25. Excuse me. Romans chapter 2, verse 25. The scripture says, For circumcision verily profiteth, if thou keep the law. Profit means to gain. All right? So circumcision verily profiteth, verily meaning truly. Circumcision verily profiteth is good for you if you keep the law, right? Because you had those that sought to be justified by the works of the law. Those were the Jews. The reason why the Jews is likened unto the circumcision, because those Jews that sought to be justified by the works of the law, they were physically circumcised. Okay? So that's circumcision, those Jews, the Israelites. But you had some Jews that believed and some Jews that didn't. For circumcision verily profiteth if thou keep the law. So the circumcision is referencing the Jews that sought to be justified by the works of the law. Okay? But if thou be a breaker of the law, thy circumcision is made uncircumcision. But if you're a breaker of the law, your circumcision is now made uncircumcision. So the circumcision is still a Jew. He's still an Israelite. But it's an Israelite that sought to be justified by the works of the law. But if thou be a breaker of the law, thy circumcision is made uncircumcision. But if that Jew breaks the law, then that Jew is no longer of the circumcision, but is rather of the uncircumcision. It doesn't mean he physically found his foreskin and put it back on. It's figuratively speaking. He's not circumcised in the heart. Real quick. Let's get the book of Deuteronomy chapter 10, verse 6. I haven't went into the scripture in a while. Deuteronomy 10 and 6. I know when I break stuff down, I know I repeat myself a lot, because I'm trying to, drill into your head. 10 and 16. Deuteronomy 10 and 16. See how these pages want to load up halfway? This wasn't happening earlier. Deuteronomy 10 and 16. It says, Circumcise therefore the foreskin of your heart, and be no more stiff-necked. So it's figurative. When you circumcise the foreskin of your heart, you're supposed to, let's go to that word, let's go right here, foreskin real quick. I rely. Arla, or Irala. Okay? See? Iralaha. It says foreskin circumcised. Foreskin uncircumcised. See? Foreskin of a tree. It says, I ate the fruit of the first 3 years, which according to the law was accounted unclean. See that? But foreskin is being referenced to, in other words, you're unclean. Alright? That's basically what it's referencing. Because according to the law, you had to be what? You had to be circumcised. This is Jeremiah 4:4. Circumcise yourselves to the Lord and take away the foreskins of your heart, meaning your mind, you men of Judah and inhabitants of Jerusalem. Lest my fury come forth like fire and burn that none can quench it because of the evil of your doings. So the foreskin of your heart, foreskin in a literal sense, is talking about that skin that's on your penis when you're born. But on the 8th day, you're supposed to be circumcised and have that foreskin removed, because that's being unclean. And there's many diseases that you can have if you actually had your foreskin on. There's many diseases. So getting circumcised physically, in a physical sense, can actually prevent you from different ailments, from different diseases. But in a spiritual sense, it's talking about the foreskin of your heart, meaning the foreskin of your mind. Removing that foreskin or removing that uncleanliness from your mind. That's why the scripture says, circumcise therefore the foreskin of your heart and be no more stiff-necked. Being stiff-necked is being stubborn. If you have a dog and you're walking a dog on that leash and that dog stiffens their neck, the dog isn't moving, the dog is being stubborn. So a person whose the foreskin of their heart is not uncovered, or rather is not circumcised, if the foreskin of a person's heart is not circumcised, then that person is stiff-necked, that person is stubborn. So that person is not adhering or not listening or obeying the laws of the Most High. That person has not circumcised their heart, circumcised the foreskin of their heart, remove that uncleanness or remove that stiff-necked nature or that stubborn nature from going against the laws of God. Because their heart is not circumcised. Their heart is uncircumcised, so they're still living in an unclean manner. Their mind is unclean spiritually. But if the foreskin of your heart is circumcised, then that uncleanness is removed. Therefore, you are no more stiff-necked, you are no more stubborn, and you are no more breaking the laws of the Most High. So let's go back to Romans 4. Romans 4:9. Romans 2. Romans 2:25. For circumcision verily profiteth if thou keep the law. But if thou be a breaker of the law, thy circumcision is made uncircumcision. So we understand circumcision verily profiteth if thou keep the law. But if you break the law, thy circumcision is made uncircumcision, because the foreskin of your heart is not circumcised. So you're stiff-necked. You're stiff-necked because you're a breaker of the law. So now your circumcision is made uncircumcision. So is the uncircumcision and the circumcision two different people? No. The circumcision and the uncircumcision is still referencing the same person or same nation of people, but one sought to be justified by the law, but then they broke the law and became uncircumcised. See that? Circumcision verily profiteth if you keep the law, but if thou be a breaker of the law, thy circumcision is made uncircumcision. So when you break the law, you're uncircumcised, figuratively speaking. It's uncircumcised in your mind because you're stiff-necked and stubborn and you're going against the law. You're breaking the law. Therefore, if the uncircumcision, so the circumcision and uncircumcision was still a Jew. One was a Jew that sought to be justified by works of the law, and one that was breaking the law. It's still talking about a Jew or Israelite. Romans 2:26. Therefore, if the uncircumcision keep the righteousness of the law, shall not his uncircumcision be counted for circumcision? So if the uncircumcision, meaning a Jew or Israelite, keep the righteousness of the law, shall not his uncircumcision be counted for circumcision? Yes, because he's keeping the law. He's now circumcised in his heart, figuratively speaking. Romans chapter 2, verse 27. It says, and shall not uncircumcision, which is by nature, right? Uncircumcision, which is by nature, meaning a person who by nature is uncircumcised. By nature, meaning what? Naturally. This person is naturally uncircumcised. This particular man here is naturally uncircumcised. He's physically uncircumcised, right? And shall not the uncircumcision, which is by nature, or shall not this person who is by nature naturally uncircumcised, if it fulfill the law, judge thee, who by the letter and circumcision doest transgress the law? So shall not this man who is physically uncircumcised by nature, naturally, if he fulfills the law, shall not he judge thee, who by the letter and circumcision doeth transgress the law? Of course he judges you, because he's the one that's keeping the will of the Most High, though he's circumcised. Now check this out. Though he's circumcised, he's keeping the will of the law, and he can judge you because you are of the circumcision and are claiming that you're keeping the law, but you're actually transgressing it. So how is it that he's judging you? Because he's physically circumcised. So how is he judging you? I'm going to tell you how. Verse 28, for he is not a Jew which is one outwardly, neither is that circumcision which is outward in the flesh. See, so look, it says, for he is not a Jew which is one outwardly, neither is that circumcision which is outward in the flesh. This person here is physically uncircumcised. But he's judging you because even though you're transgressing the law, because it's not about being physically circumcised. It's not about being circumcised outwardly in the flesh. Why? Because he is a Jew which is one inwardly. That man, though he was physically uncircumcised, he was a Jew inwardly, meaning in his heart, in his mind, in his spirit. Okay? And circumcision is that of the heart, in the spirit, and not of the letter, meaning not of the law, whose praise is not of men, but of the Most High. So this man who was physically uncircumcised by nature judged you because he fulfilled the law, because he believed in Yahweh Shah, though you're the ones that transgressed. Because it's not about being physically circumcised. He was physically uncircumcised, but he managed to judge you because he was circumcised inwardly in the heart and not by the law. See, that's why it says of the heart and in the spirit and not by the law, whose praise is not a member of the Most High. Because the circumcision sought the praises of men, sought glory, sought boasting in the law, right? Though they were physically circumcised. But you had those who were physically uncircumcised who judged them because though they were not circumcised outwardly, they were circumcised inwardly in the heart and in the spirit. And then see the praises of men, but sees the praises of the Most High because they believed in His Son Yahweh Shah whom He have sent. So let's go back. This is Romans. Okay, one more verse. Romans 3:1. To get right to the point who the circumcision is. Romans 3:1. What advantage then hath the Jew? Or what profit is there of circumcision? Much every way chiefly because that unto them were committed the oracles of the Most High. So that right there tells you that the Jews were the ones who were of the circumcision. So the circumcision and uncircumcision are the same people. They're both Jews. One sought the works of the law, and one was uncircumcised. One was physically circumcised and sought righteousness through the works of the law, and the other one was uncircumcised and sought the righteousness of faith in Yahweh Shah. So, go back to 4:9, Romans 4:9. Cometh this blessedness then upon the circumcision only, or upon the uncircumcision also? But we say that faith was reckoned to Abraham for righteousness. How was it then reckoned? While he was in circumcision or in uncircumcision? Not in uncircumcision, but in circumcision. So it tells you how was faith reckoned for Abraham? Was it reckoned when he was in circumcision or uncircumcision? Not in circumcision, but in uncircumcision, like we just read. And he received the sign of circumcision, a seal of righteousness of the faith which he had yet being uncircumcised. Let's go back to Genesis 7. Let's go to Genesis 17. Right to the point. This is my covenant, which he shall keep between me and you and thy seed after thee. Every man child among you shall be circumcised. So every man child among you shall be circumcised. Okay? But he received this yet being uncircumcised. Because why? Let's go to 1 second. Let's see if I can find the exact part. Check this out. See, Romans 17:24. It says in Genesis 17:24, and Abraham was 90 years old and 9 when he was circumcised in the flesh of his foreskin. So Abraham wasn't circumcised until he was 99 years old. But that blessedness of Abraham's faith Abraham had possessed it, yet already being uncircumcised. How can we prove that? Genesis the 15th chapter. We just read Genesis the 17th chapter. Now let's go back to Genesis the 15th chapter. Right to the point. Genesis chapter 15, I think it's verse 6. And he believed in Yahweh, and he counted it to him for righteousness. So Abraham's faith, Abraham's righteousness through believing in the Lord, Abraham had that faith, yet being physically uncircumcised. Because this is the 15th chapter. He wasn't physically circumcised. He was uncircumcised at this point. So he had this faith yet being uncircumcised. Because he wasn't circumcised yet until in Genesis 17:24. That's why it says, and he received the sign of circumcision, a seal of righteousness of the faith, which he had yet being uncircumcised, that he might be the father of all them that believe, though they be not circumcised, that righteousness might be imputed unto them also. So in other words, what he's saying is this. What he's saying is, Abraham's faith was reckoned, see, Faith was reckoned Abraham to righteousness, right? How was it reckoned? While he was in circumcision or uncircumcision? Meaning, was he physically circumcised or uncircumcised? Not circumcision, but an uncircumcision. So this faith that was reckoned or accounted to Abraham for righteousness, it was reckoned unto him while he was in uncircumcision, right? But why was that? He received the sign of circumcision and the seal of the righteousness of the faith which he had being uncircumcised, that he might be the father of all them that believe, though they be not circumcised. So Abraham received the righteousness of faith, though he wasn't physically circumcised. Why? He received it while he was in uncircumcision, so that later on in the future, the Israelite foreigners that was going to come into the fold, though they were physically uncircumcised, they too will also be justified by faith, just as Abraham was justified through faith, yet being uncircumcised as well. Okay? And that is called, it's a particular word that's called a foreshadowing. Foreshadowing is a foreshadowing, Foreshadoww. Foreshadow. A foreshadow or foreshadowing is an indication beforehand of something that's going to happen in the future. So Abraham beforehand received the righteousness of faith, being physically uncircumcised, because later on in the future, that was an indication that later on in the future, there's like foreigners who's going to come into the fold and be justified through faith. They weren't going to be physically circumcised either. But yet, though not physically uncircumcised, but being uncircumcised, they would still be justified through faith, just as their father Abraham was when he wasn't circumcised either. So both Abraham and the Israelite foreigners were both justified through faith, yet not being physically uncircumcised, showing that this is about faith. It's not about the works of the law. Let me check the time real quick. Okay, got a little bit of time left. Okay. Romans 4:12. And the Father, let me get a scripture on that. Galatians 3:6. Galatians chapter 3, verse 6. It says, even as Abraham believed the Most High, and it was accounted to him for righteousness, know ye therefore that they which are of faith, the same are the children of Abraham. That's the uncircumcision, those Israelites. And the scripture foreseeing that the Most High would justify the heathen through faith. The heathen is talking about the Israelite foreigners, man. It ain't talking about the other nation. Let's see what it says here for heathen. I'm going to end it up at this verse, because interest of time. I'm going to end it after I'm done with these scriptures in Galatians. And I'm going to go back to Romans, finish that verse off, and then I'm done to the next segment. I'm going to try to finish the next segment quick. This is ethnos. Okay? This is the word ethnos. Well, it don't gotta play. I don't really care if it don't play.
Strong's G 1484. Ethnos. Ethnos.
Let's do that one more time. So you both go ahead.
Strong's G 1484. Ethnos. Ethnos.
Right, ethnos. Right? Says a multitude, whether of men or of beasts, associated or living together, a company, troop, swarm, a multitude of individuals of the same nature or genus, the human family, a tribe, nation, people group. In the Old Testament, foreign nation not worshiping the true God, pagans, Gentiles, they're going off there, because when you read the scriptures in the Old Testament, when it speaks about the Gentiles, according to the scripture, according to the context, it's talking about those like foreigners. And it says Paul used the term for Gentile Christians, meaning meaning Israelite foreigners. That's what it should say. Okay? Which heathenist means country dweller. That's what it actually means. Because the Israelites were dwelling outside the country of Israel. They were dwelling outside Jerusalem. That's why we read in the book of Galatians right now. They're living in Galatia, man. Which is where? In Turkey. Okay? Alright? So it says, where was I? And the scripture foreseeing that the Most High would justify the heathen through faith, talking about the Israelite foreigners, through faith, preached before the gospel unto Abraham, saying, in thee shall all nations be blessed, talking about the Israelite foreigners. Because they're like scattered across all these different nations. So then they which be of faith are blessed with faithful Abraham. Let me go this real quick. And another verse. So it says, just read. So they would be of faith are blessed with faithful Abraham. That's the Israelite foreigners. The uncircumcision, as we just broke down. Verse 14. That the blessing of Abraham might come on the Gentiles through Yahushua, that we might receive the promise of the Spirit through faith. See, that the blessing of Abraham might come on the Gentiles through Yahushua. Going back here. And he received the sign of circumcision, a seal of righteousness of the faith, which he had, yet not being circumcised, that he might be the father of all them that believe, though they be not circumcised. That's the same thing that's saying in Galatians. The blessing might come upon the Gentiles. The blessing will come upon the Gentiles, that he might be the father of all them that might believe, though they be not circumcised. That blessing that is come upon the Gentiles are the uncircumcision, the Israelite foreigners. That righteousness may be imputed unto them also. Right, that righteousness may be accounted unto them also, though they be not circumcised physically. Okay? So with that, all you brothers learn something. Stay tuned till next time. I'm going to try to wrap it up. Shalom.